sure it's that important, right? That's what he's expressing. So I would then say, again, that's a great question. You're really kind of wondering, given that you're not that far off, do I really need to start taking a medicine all the time? He'd say, right, great question. Would you be okay if I gave you some information to address your concern and you tell me what you think? Patient said yes, and here's what I told him. I said, and in our book that's coming out, we have a whole chapter on analogies, because people like analogies. They make sense. And here's the analogy I used. Here's what I said to him. If I can draw an analogy for you, if your blood pressure is the fuse and the explosion is the stroke or heart attack, okay? The problem is we don't know how long your fuse is. And that's why all blood pressure is potentially dangerous. There are people whose blood pressure that's much higher than yours that because of family history, etc., or genetics, it may or may not burn down. We just don't know how long your fuse is. You have to decide how important is it for you to lower your blood pressure to protect the integrity of your fuse. This medicine can effectively lower your blood pressure, which protects your fuse to prevent you from having the explosion. Where does that leave you now in terms of taking the medicine? Guess what he said? Nobody ever explained it to me that way. Did he get an answer to his question of why do I need to take this? And isn't it the truth? We don't know. We don't know how long his fuse is. And so that's why, so really it got reframed as the decision is how important is it for you to reduce your risk of your fuse burning down. Now he gets it. Okay. Steps. So what have I done? I developed rapport. I reflected back my understanding of what the patient's thought process was about the issue. So you're wondering, notice in a compassionate and completely non-judgmental way. Even the woman on the phone, I would have said, so because you feel okay and your blood pressure never goes above 156/110, you're wondering, why do I need to take it more than 4 days a week? Right? See, notice I've made no judgment of the 156/110, and then I can say, that's a great question. Would you mind if I gave you some information and you tell me what you think? And then I would tell her, we know that when blood pressure goes below 140/90, your risks of stroke or heart attack go way down. Yours is quite a bit above that, which puts you at much higher risk, even though you feel okay. How important is it for you to reduce your risk of having a stroke or heart attack? I might even add, I would hate to see you have a stroke or a heart attack when it's completely preventable by you. By who? By you. And what does that say to a patient when I'd say, I would hate to see you have a stroke or a heart attack that you could prevent? And this is what I mean by, this can't be phony. You have to really want the best for this patient. They may not choose the best, but you still have to want it for them. Okay? So, and then by the way, I'm thinking, is this a lack of motivation about the importance or confidence? Right? So when she's saying, I feel fine and my blood pressure never goes above 156/110, it's an importance issue, right? It just doesn't seem important enough to me to take it every day. So I've got to address something that would make this important for her. Otherwise, she's not changing her behavior. Okay? We ask permission to provide information, and then we ask the patient, after we do that, where does this leave you now? Why? Because after I give them new information, I want to know, does it change their sense of things? Do they now believe it's important? One patient might say, wow, I had no idea. Nobody ever explained it to me that way. I'll take the medicine. Another patient might say, come on, you're telling me I could feel this good and still be at risk of a stroke? In which case I would say, you really can, and that's the dangerous part about high blood pressure. But in either case, I now find out, how has this new information affected their thought process? And I have to know that to know what the next steps are. Okay, so I want to do a really quick case study, and then I'm going to show you a couple videos about this case study. This is a real patient, not her real name, for HIPAA purposes. This is a patient I worked with in our clinic before I left Auburn University. We had a live pharmacy, dispensing pharmacy in the School of Pharmacy at Auburn to train our students to do motivational interviewing. And we had two pharmacies, one for students, one for faculty and staff. This was the wife of a faculty member that came in, Julie Stockton. She's a 37-year-old female. She has a daughter, Sarah, who's 10 years old, has asthma, and has been in the emergency room 10 times in the past 2 years. Is that a high health care cost? Is that an outcome that's preventable? A negative outcome, right? She has been refilling the rescue inhaler extremely frequently, much faster than once a month, okay? And it's been months since the chronic inhaler had been refilled. Okay, months. And he was starting to formulate a theory. What's going on? When asked about this, Julie says, defensively, I don't want my daughter using a steroid, and just so you know, I smoke, but I smoke outside so it doesn't affect Sarah. Now, here's what I want you to understand. She had looked up the drug that was in the chronic inhaler, saw corticosteroid, decided it was anabolic, and said she ain't taking it. And she smokes outside, but what do we know? Can get on her clothes, and especially if her daughter's lungs are unprotected from the chronic inhaler, do we know why she's in the emergency room so often? Now, I ask healthcare providers this question all the time. How many of you have formed a negative opinion of this woman right now? Be honest. Okay, all right, hold your thought. How many of you even thought to yourself, difficult patient? We actually, this patient, when she said, I had a pharmacy student that was learning with me, when she said, look, I don't want my daughter using a steroid, and just so you know, I smoke, but I smoke outside, and it doesn't affect Sarah. So I don't want to hear about my smoking. Poor pharmacy student blanched. We call this in motivational interviewing, oh crap moments, where you stand there and they say something, the patient says something, and you go, oh crap, okay? And what's the oh crap about? It's about, how am I going to fix this? And that's the problem. It's not your job to fix it. It's your job to care and help her understand what's her sense making about. Her sense is, I don't want my daughter taking a steroid, and my smoking doesn't affect her, right? Any information I provide must address in a caring, loving way how, in fact, this is not a steroid like she thought, and without it, your daughter's lungs are extremely vulnerable, and your smoking does affect her, without causing her to be defensive. Many of you are saying, good luck, okay? Now, I want you to watch a video. This is me. I'm working here with a standardized patient. I'm going to show you a video. This is Alaska, by the way. I'm working with a standardized patient who's an actress. All I did was gave her the background, and she was going to role play with me, and I told her, you just react to me. I'm playing the healthcare provider because it's too hard to get actors to do MI. Okay? I mean, you got to teach people how to do this. So this is the non-MI approach, all right? So watch what happens, and what I want you to be keeping in mind, what are the three things that affect motivation for change? See if you're listening. Rapport, importance, confidence. Okay, you already have a sense of, is this an importance issue or a confidence issue for her? Well, it's an importance issue, but she may not be confident she can quit smoking either, right? So maybe both. And then I want you to watch about whether or not I create rapport with her in the non-MI example, all right? Hi. You, Julie Thompson? Mm-hmm. Hi, I'm Bruce Berger. I work in the clinic. I know you're here to pick up a prescription today. Mm-hmm. We noticed from your records that you've been coming in and getting Sarah's rescue inhaler for her asthma quite frequently, and you haven't got her chronic inhaler for quite some time now. I also know she's been in the emergency room several times this year. Can you tell me what's going on there?
Well, I did research on the chronic inhaler, and I saw that there were steroids in it, and I do not want my daughter taking steroids. I read about all the side effects of steroids and all the potential health problems. I don't want her taking them. And I just want to tell you right up front, I do not want to hear anything about the fact that I do smoke. I smoke outside, I smoke away from her, I do not ever do it around her, so I do not want to hear about that.
Well, I need to tell you that the medicine that she's taking, the chronic inhaler, which is really essential to controlling her asthma, is not a steroid like you're thinking. It's much safer. It's very safe. She needs to take it to get her asthma under control. And I also want to tell you that your smoking does affect her asthma, even if it's outside. It gets on her clothes. And to be honest, I'd like to see you quit smoking for you anyway. But if you want to keep her out of the emergency room, she needs to use that chronic inhaler every day, and you need to watch your smoking.
Okay, I am not going to allow her to take any kind of steroid. I am not going to allow that to happen. She's my daughter, she's my responsibility, and I'm not going to allow that to happen. And I absolutely make sure that the smoking does not affect her.
Okay, I don't want to argue with you about this. I know that if you want to keep Sarah out of the emergency room, I just wish you'd heed what I'm saying. She needs to use that chronic inhaler every day to get her asthma under control, and the smoke on your clothes and the smoking flares her asthma up. So she really needs to use that chronic inhaler, and you really need to think about quitting smoking.
Fine. I'm in a really big hurry, and I need to get those prescriptions filled as soon as possible, please.
Okay. Well, I hope you really listen to what I'm telling you about using that chronic inhaler, and I hope you consider quitting smoking.
Fine. I just need to get my prescriptions.
Okay.
Now, and here's what's interesting. One of the things we do when we do training and we do inappropriate is, how many of you ever seen these training videos that are so over the top that you're embarrassed that anybody ever thinks that you would act that way? But on the other hand, how many of you agree this is not over the top? Okay, and yet, if I asked you right now, what is the probability that the daughter will not be in the emergency room over the next year? 0. Why? Why didn't this work? Did I tell her the truth? I did. Why didn't she hear it? What's missing? The 3 things. What's missing? There is no rapport. 0 rapport. When there is no rapport, the information sounds like what? It sounds like bad mother. Do you agree? And her response to it is what? I got to leave. Did you hear me? And I did not script her. When we were done, she looked at me and she said, "You pissed me off." Okay? And she's just a hired actress doing what she's supposed to do. She says, if I was that woman and that was my daughter, she says, I would never come back and see you again. I said, but I wasn't mean. I told you the truth. And she said, yeah, but it was your attitude. And that's what we mean by rapport. It did not feel caring to her. One bit. One bit. Everybody see it. All the elements were there except rapport. So in her mind, it didn't feel like I cared about her. What did it feel like to her? That I wanted to show her she was wrong, right? Now, interesting about this, I ask people all the time, especially when I do this with physicians, their first response is, what's wrong with that? But on top of that, I lost my train of thought. It'll come back to me in a minute. Now what I want to do is I want to show you motivational interviewing, all right? And I'm not going to, and what's really remarkable about this is after we finished that one, I said to her, okay, we're going to do it again. And she said, you're kidding, because remember what she said to me when we finished? I said, no. And she's armed for bear, right? And I said, I need you to just react to me the way you would react if you like it or don't like it. And we didn't tell her what this training was about to bias her. I know what I was going to say. How many of you would agree with me that many people watching this would label her as a difficult patient? And here's what's ironic. Relationships are relational. It takes 2 people to screw up a marriage, right? Why isn't he difficult? In fact, when I watch this, it's really hard for me to watch myself do that. But I also have another expression. Just when you think you're a nobody, you can always be a Horrible example. Okay. In any case, is she a difficult patient? I see her through the eyes of motivational interviewing as somebody who cares dearly for her daughter. She doesn't want her taking a steroid. She's smoking outside because she doesn't want to hurt her daughter. Can she be totally caring and misguided? And isn't that who she is? And then when she feels attacked, why wouldn't she become? There's a lot of face loss going on here. All of you know what face loss is? When you lose face, you defend yourself. Okay? So now here's what's interesting. When you watch this, what she does here is literally identical to what the patient in the clinic did. Unscripted. That's the part that's just phenomenal to me about how powerful MI is and how predictive it is about how it works. And then I'll tell you the moral of the story after you watch it.
Hi, are you Julie Thompson? Hi, I'm Bruce Berger. I work in the clinic, and I noticed that you're in to pick up a prescription for Sarah's rescue inhaler for her asthma. Noticed that she's been in the emergency room 5 times in the last year for her asthma. What's that been like for you?
It's been really difficult. I hate to see her gasping for breath, and I'm really worried, you know, when she has to go. So it's really difficult when I have to take her.
Yeah, it sounds like you'd be willing to do whatever you can to try to prevent that from happening. Okay.
Yeah.
I also noticed that it's been about 3 months or so since you picked up the prescription for her chronic inhaler. Are you having some difficulties with that?
Well, I did research